Hello, welcome to Milton Keynes Literary Festival. I'm Yvonne Elliott from the organising team. Before we start, huge thanks to Milton Keynes City Council, the Centre MK, our lovely hosts here, MK Community Learning, and the library's Waterstones as well for supporting the Lit Fest, and of course you, our audience. And our tech team, and the fabulous team of volunteers who make it all happen. And now I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Isabelle Baafi, Caroline Davies, and John McCullough.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really wonderful to see the room so full, and welcome to all those of you who are tuning in on the live stream. When the Lit Fest said to me, "Oh, would you host our poetry event this year? We're going to have John McCullough along." I kind of bit their hand off. And then they said, "Oh, and we're going to have Isabelle Baafi as well." It was like Christmas. And April is my birthday month, so it was like, this is my birthday surprise as well. So it's wonderful. So thank you for being here. And I did also want to say thank you to all the volunteers behind the scenes who make these events at the Lit Fest possible. Without them, we wouldn't all be here. So I am delighted to introduce two of our leading and award-winning poets, Isabelle Baafi and John McCullough. Isabelle will be reading from Chaotic Good, and John will be reading from Crowd Voltage, their most recent books. You will have the chance to ask questions during the afternoon, and of course, at the end, the opportunity to buy their books and have them signed. The way we're going to run it is they will read two sets of poems, and in the middle, we're going to have discussion about what it's like being a poet and issues like that. So do think of questions to ask them in the middle section. This is your chance to ask. So if I turn to Isabelle, a poet whose work is powerful and unflinchingly honest. Isabelle is a poet, writer, and editor of Jamaican and South African heritage, who was born and raised in London. Chaotic Good won the Forward Prize for Best First Collection and was also shortlisted for the 2025 T.S. Eliot Prize. It was a Poetry Book Society recommendation last summer. Her pamphlet, Ripe, published by Ignition Press, won a Somerset Maugham Award. And Isabelle is a multiple prize winner. She has won the Winchester Poetry Prize, the London Magazine Poetry Prize, the Vincent Cooper Poetry Literary Prize, and she's been commended or highly commended in the following competitions: the Oxford Poetry Prize, the Aesthetica Creative Writing Award, the Brunel International African Poetry Prize, the Bridport Prize, the Oxford Brookes International Poetry Competition, the Manchester Poetry Prize, and the Verve Poetry Festival. And I'm sure you will go on to win many more prizes in the future, Isabelle. I asked both the poets to tell me a fun fact about themselves to lighten up the list of prizes and things. So his name is Catherine, which means pure, which is something I didn't know. I know Catherine's, but I didn't know that. And for me, what stands out in Isabelle's work is a sense of care. Care for language, care for lived experience, and for all the stories that shape us. There's a quiet confidence in her writing and a sense that each word has been carefully chosen. Please join me in welcoming Isabelle.
Hi, everyone. Massive props to whoever set up this microphone. It's the perfect height, which is a rare thing for me. Yeah, it's so cool to be here. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Caroline, and to MK Lit Fest for having me. One of the best things about being an author is getting to tour the country and many other countries to share your work. And so this is my first time in Milton Keynes, but I'm sure it won't be the last. So I'm going to read from my book, Chaotic Good, which explores many themes, but I suppose at the center, it's like identity and how that kind of hinges on relationships and power and where our sense of right and wrong comes from and how those things shape us throughout our lives. So the first few poems that I'm going to read kind of orient that theme, like the world of ideas and and morality and how these things are kind of absorbed by people, both human and non-human. This is the scarecrow. If I turn away from light, head bowed from the sun's admonishing glare, and peel off from this crucifying wood, this soil punished by a plough's claw, if I stalk the village shadows, past the schoolhouse, through the mire, ascending walls like ivy, dodging moonglow and priest flambeau, if I wrestle with the dark, obey the adder wrapped around my wrist, dance with spirits in the graveyard, stain my lips with the menses of a witch. If I succumb to the pull of a milkmaid's braid, the trembling of a rabbit underfoot, the frailty of fontanelle, the softness of a child locked and wailing in a basement. If I catch a rag doll by the dress, tear its seams, hold it face down in a pail, pile its hair in the gut of a wheelbarrow, shove its innards down the gullet of a well. If I conjure a murmuration in the figure of a scythe and taunt the crows who rule the sky but peck at dirt to cling to life, will you adorn me with dandelions, paint my cheeks with mulberry blood? Will you offer up the bones of your dead when the straw in your barns catches fire? Will you give to me your withered grass, your grain that refuses to bud? Will you still say that I know nothing of you? Will you still say that I am not a man? Thank you. The next poem is called chiaroscuro. For those who don't know, chiaroscuro is an art technique in which heavy uses of light and dark are used to create contrast and drama. This is chiaroscuro. Ask me about my first crush, the sand my brother piled on me till I couldn't breathe. He gave me a hammer. I didn't use it, but I took its power. Sunrise, sun threat, sun drinks, the rain that pulls in collarbones, mother's hands raking my scalp. Yesterday, I pressed her sponge to the lake to clean it. Now the lake is gone. It is easier to lasso the moon than to help your father lay down to die. But what if the tomatoes never went bad? What if splinters are a warning to run? I once found a ransom note in my ear. The face in the photo was mine. I pawned everything, went to the drop-off point. No one ever came to set me free. Give me a bed with no crumbs in it, pluck the fish bones from my throat. I forgot where I hid the matches, and after that, it was easier just to live in the dark. The last poem that I'll read for this section is inspired by the glorious horror of being a teenage girl. It's called the bystander effect, which is, for those who don't know, a phenomenon in which the greater the number of people present, the less likely each person is to help someone in distress. Okay. The bystander effect. Her options were the same as ours. A, rude gal. B, weirdo. C, class clown. D, scat. All of them chafed. All of us were ugly then. And in order to speak of us, I must first fill my mouth with blood. Conjure fire like the cigarettes put out on our eyelids, the slurs parting our hair, the teacher dropping his pen next to the vista up our skirts, the neighbor whistling us over, the car window rolled down, the flash of pink. Who knows why mounds sprouted from our chests? the places we once tickled now swarming with hair, inundated by first blood, the flood, the fathoms, the undertow, cornered by Liam from the year above, where the only way out was older, but redacted, leaning in, even into that same fire. A fast girl, the older one said. So fast that she was 15, 2 years before us. And the flamingo legs and the foxy hair, the reason boys followed us hens after school to the coop, the playground where we slogged under the weight of Lambrini-packed bags, same spot where a camera once winked through pricks of holly, where every brick became a dare, where we'd squat under the climbing frame or against the ecstasy of a rocking horse. Every day, Redacted went behind the shed with Darren or Owen or Marcus or Akil. One of them would smile and beckon, fingers still wet with the last girl. And Redacted always came back with mud-stained elbows and bee-stung calves. We should have noticed the bleeding cuticles, how she held her wrist when her uncle called. We never doubted that the marks on her neck came from a beast any larger than a bee. A, rude yell. B, weirdo. C, class clown. D, sket. We were each other's mirrors, shattered but sure. The highest form of praise was a rumor started in your name, and what we didn't make ourselves, we poured over, poured into. We plugged its holes with our fingers and never felt the poison seeping in. Our thoughts bloomed in other girls' mouths. No, she was no rude gal, no weirdo, no class clown. And no, we never laughed. And even when we did, she never heard us. And even when she heard us, she didn't know why. And even when she knew why, it didn't matter. At the park, when we pierced daisy stems with our nails, there were no screams, no petals bruised. For hours those afternoons, pushing one into the other, then another, then another. Laughing at the merry-go-round that groaned when we jerked it around. The reckless of us, piled on a swing, riding it till it broke. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. You can tell how that ended up lifting the prizes, those poems. It's now a real pleasure to introduce you to a poet whose poems bring a sense of wonder to the everyday, John McCullough. John is the author of 5 acclaimed collections, including Frost Fairs, which won the Polari Prize, Spacecraft, which was shortlisted for the Ledbury Fort Prize, as well as being a summer read in The Guardian. His 3rd book of poems, Reckless Paper Birds, won the 2020 Hawthornden Literary Prize and was shortlisted for the Costa Poetry Award. Panic Response was a book of the year for The Telegraph and one of the Times notable new books of 2020. And the long poem from that collection, Flower of Sulphur, was shortlisted for the 2021 Ford Prize. And his latest book, Crowd Voltage, has just been published by Bllodaxe Books. So you're in the privileged position of being one of the first audiences to hear John read from Crowd Voltage. John was born and brought up in Watford and now lives in Hove with his partner and 2 cats. We had a discussion on the way here about the fun fact because I asked poets to send me a fun fact. And I was threatening John with inventing fun facts about him to do with advent calendars and Reebok trainers and things. And we settled on the fact he's a Doctor Who fan as the fun fact. John's poetry has a remarkable way of illuminating the ordinary and revealing something quietly extraordinary, whether he's writing about Brighton's West Pier, millipedes, or a glimpse of a magpie that turns into something or someone quite different. Please join me in welcoming John McCullough.
It's a great pleasure to be back in Milton Keynes. I read here a few years ago and did a workshop. Not doing a workshop But yeah, it's wonderful to be invited back. I'm going to begin with the first poem from this new book, Crowd Voltage. Choir. Technically, the human walk is an interrupted fall. We right ourselves each time, promptly stumble again. Someone whispers they're in love between two leafless elms like devastated figures. The rain is an excited animal, licking everything, watched by a woman in a beach hut, sucking loneliness like a mint. I return from the dead each morning till one day I won't. Stroke unspeakable cargo, then feel like a celebrity when a stranger holds a door. Whatever happens goes on behind words. The bottom of the wave that takes the plover's carcass retreats through shingle, and once more the battered stones begin to sing. Against me. Like the air, I fight myself daily. One nostril smells the world differently from the other, and I enjoy that. I don't want to hear the same thoughts clanking into each other like dirty wind chimes. If I stare at dry leaves too long, I begin to curl and split, so I keep marching, following dropped acorns of information. Sometimes I am scary as my passport photo. Sometimes I want to umbrella the night, include the moon in my circle of sanctuary, then embrace the nearest stranger whose face is gentle and closed on the verge of unfolding. Okay, so here's my my last poem for this section, and it is inspired. I'm inspired often by animal facts. I have a geeky brain, and one of my favorite things is just reading books of facts about animals. And one of my favorite fish is the sunfish, which is this giant, gawky, clumsy fish, like huge, big circle. It only makes a brief appearance in the poem, but yeah, if you haven't seen a sunfish, then do Google them because they are amazing. Anyway, sunfish. Who wants to live for eons anyway? Watch everyone you love dissolve while you keep shining, pissing out the latest drops of the ocean that's passed through your body. I'd rather be a sunfish than the sun, rather hop over stepping stones in my cowboy hat than endure like the serious mountains. I can't answer the sky's questions or the seas. I light candles because I love starting fires that are small and temporary, like beetles, like flowers, like most of us, common as days. Thank you.
Thank you both very much indeed. So we now move on to questions, but I just wanted to start because we were discussing who would be in the audience on our way here. Would you put your hand up if you consider yourself to be a poet or a writer of poetry? Higher. Okay, yeah, so about half the audience. So my question to Isabelle and John is, at what point did you realize that you were going to be a poet or were a poet? Was there like a blinding flash and you thought, this is it, I'm a poet now? Or was it a more gradual process?
I like that you said a blinding flash, because yeah, for me it was kind of a surprise actually. So I wrote poetry as a teenager, but then after a few years I stopped, and then like during my undergrad and my early 20s, I was kind of dabbling into fiction and screenwriting and things like that. And then one day I was doing short stories and I was trying to do flash fiction, so to just generate as many little bits of fiction as I could. And they were just getting shorter and shorter and weirder and weirder. And one day I was like, oh, this is actually a poem. And then I just kind of went with that. So yeah, for me, it was very like a way of thinking about narrative, but also like focusing on imagery, like John said, and just really allowing that to kind of lead you to new forms and new styles.
Oh, yes, I need to speak into the mic. John.
I think for me, it began as a teenager getting excited by other people's poetry. I've always been a big reader of poetry. I read it more than anything else. I'm always energized and revitalized by other people's writing. Yeah, I was so excited today to meet Isabelle because I knew her work really well. And the first poets that I got into were the ones I did at A level, Emily Dickinson and Sylvia Plath, both. And from both of them, yeah, very image. Yeah, real strength in their imagery and their phrase making, very creative, imaginative writers. So for yeah, several years I was Watford's gay Sylvia Plath, floating around like a little thundercloud and writing very terrible poems that were highly angsty and suicide based. And then over time, reading other poets who were, yeah, a bit more cheery as well, like Frank O'Hara and, you know, many others. But yeah, for me, it was all about, yeah, all about the reading, really.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you. With both of you, as we've heard a little already, your poems deal with questions of identity and the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. Whether I love being a giraffe, or would you like to say a little bit more about how that comes about? Does that emerge as you're writing? I assume it does, but.
Well, for me, this is my first book, so this is in some ways like the story of my whole life up until, a few years ago. And so during the period where I was kind of really putting it together, I was thinking a lot about regret and reflection and retrospection, time and time travel and parallel lifetimes and universes, all because I was thinking about free will and the choices we make and how those can shape the rest of our lives. So definitely when you say the stories we tell ourselves, that's such a huge thing, and that's been such a huge thing for me, looking at like deconstructing identities and frameworks for morality and what it means to be a person and to be a wife and a daughter and so many things, and interrogating them and challenging them. So yeah, looking at who we are on our own and in relation to ideas and archetypes in folklore and fairy tales, and like the scarecrow, from different traditions of literature, and family as well, and relationships has been really important for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I would really echo that. For me, poetry is all about surprise and discovery. And the writing process for me is where I find out things about myself. I don't carry around lots of interesting ideas about identity in my head. It's only through the unfolding of an image that things happen. I always think that the poems are more interesting than me. They tend to think more, new things that, yeah, I start out with a string of words or an image and just playing around with them and honing and crafting and editing. Yeah, the poem seems to reveal things, and I encounter new thoughts about identity through that process that lead me somewhere in everything I write. It's always different to what I set down to write. I could set down to write a poem, and what emerges, it'll almost invariably be different. I'll be carried sideways and usually somewhere more interesting than what I set out to write.
Yeah, yeah. I see you nodding, Isabelle. I mean, I find that for me, but presumably for you as well. You don't know where you're going when you sit down with a poem.
Sometimes I have an idea, but then it's always really rewarding, and that I feel like the best poems come out of surprise and just allowing an idea to, unfold, as you said, and to develop into something else and seeing where language takes you.
Yeah. I had offered the audience a chance. I'm just glancing around to see if there's anyone who seems to have a burning need to ask a question. Yeah, a person at the back.
Hi, Isabelle, I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but how would you say that your experience of a Black British person has affected your writing?
It's hard to tell overall because it's the only experience I have. Well, someone asked me once, what it's like to be the second Black woman to be published by Faber's the poetry. Sorry, the second Black woman to be on their poetry list, basically, of Faber. And it's a huge honor. It's a great press, and they've published so many amazing poets. I think it's Also, and it was so lovely to work with the editorial team and the entire team, and it's a great list. I think it's a sign that there's still so many more voices which are overlooked and which deserve spotlight. In the green room, we were talking about Irene P. Mathieu, who's like an African-American poet who I draw a lot of inspiration from. And there are loads of Black writers from all over the world who I draw so much inspiration from, and who inspire other people as well. And so I think when we broaden the range of voices who are heard and have opportunities, then everyone's experience of literature is enriched. So yeah, it's been great. It's been just wonderful to like find an avenue to express my voice as a person, but then obviously perhaps for what I may stand for in other people's eyes too.
Yeah, I think it's important that we hear the unheard voices. And I think the poetry world has moved on in the last 5 years. It's so different how it was, yeah. And led by the prize culture, actually. I think it was the Forward Prize that first started selecting not the same old familiar poets, but newer, younger poets. So, yeah. Yeah. Is there anyone else with a burning? Oh gosh, they come.
I've got a question for Isabelle. How would you say that being in my understanding from your poems and how you've described yourself is that internally you think a lot about the past and how it makes you who you are today? Do you think that it gets easier to do that as you get older to understand yourself, or does it get harder the more life you have to think about?
It's a really interesting question. I think,
As a young,
yeah, I think it can depend on many things, like the experiences a person has had, but then also their willingness to confront and explore those experiences as well. Like I know a lot, like for instance, parallel to writing this book, I was also going through a very tumultuous time in my life, and I sought the help of a professional to kind of, to help me navigate those things, and unpack, as we were talking about, all the, the things that have led to me being who I am. Poetry can also help with that as well. And so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Does it easier? I think, yeah, I think it's really about a willingness to kind of go through those things. Yeah, I think maturity can help, but some people, they get older and they just remain fixed in their ways. So yeah, I think that's why one of the reasons why poetry has really helped me, because it encourages introspection and it allows ambivalence as well. So you're able to kind of bring those conflicting parts of you and give all of them expression, and that can help. That can be a source of catharsis.
That leads rather beautifully onto my, that leads rather beautifully onto my last question for this set. Because for me, being involved in and immersed in poetry has on occasions been life-saving. And I wondered if you share that idea of poetry as providing a refuge. John, would you like to? Just saving your life.
I know. So there are certain books that I go back to that I find energizing. So I mentioned Frank O'Hara's his lunch poem book, which is really kind of friendly and bouncy. It's one of those collections I go back to when I am feeling down. I relate very much to what Isabelle said about the simultaneity that you can have in poetry, how a poem can embody the difficult truths that are, that are not simple, that it can accommodate ambivalence and doubleness and two opposing, mixed feelings being present at the same time. Yeah, certainly. I think it's very common for people that are drawn to poetry to often be very sensitive to language, very easily hurt by language, and that language can be a healing force for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Simone?
Yeah, poetry has been like such an incredible outlet for me. It's helped me deal with a lot of difficult times and experiences, and is given me a new life as well, like professional life and the choices that come with that. So it's been an incredible art form for me to tap into, and being in conversation with other writers and as a creative, like, it's just been so enriching and incredible, life-saving in every way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's brilliant. Of readings. Did we have?
So far as I know, I'm not a poet, but I love watching poetry and seeing how it's performed. And you both have very distinctive styles, and John's is particularly kinetic style of delivery. So my question is two parts. One, how far, when you're writing a poem, do you imagine how it will be performed? And how would you feel about someone else performing your written work?
I think Isabelle and me both write books. We both write, well, certainly I write with the page in mind first of all, and then I kind of translate it into performance once the book is done. One of the lovely things about when books come out and you go on a tour and you go around to various cities is that you do end up performing quite a bit, and then the performance kind of takes shape for me. Once the books come out, I'm thinking, how can I convert this into a little show? So there's one poem in this book, which I read in the second half, which started out life as a spoken word only piece, and then it got converted into a page poem, and it's a very old poem of mine. But yeah, usually I write not thinking about the performance so much. I think because it's such a different medium. With performance, it needs to land, it needs to be immediate, it needs to connect with people in the moment because the audience.
John, if
I'll begin with that piece there. I was born in an Adidas tracksuit. The midwife gasped as she tugged me, and the markings emerged. 3 parallel white bars along my shoulders, arms, legs, the rest midnight blue. The woven kind, perfect for hurtling through alleys, dodging showers of stones. It disrupted interviews. I tried to slough it off, but the zip wouldn't budge. I entombed my tracksuit under smarter clothes, creased trousers, blazers, my back molten as I layered up for posh restaurants, church. I bolted to the coast. I hid in bars and met avid hands. They waterfalled down my thighs. I realized my stripes were showing, but here it was fine to be stain resistant, to don sweatpants you could spy a cock through. If you look closely, you can see I'm still wearing it now. This uniform with an elastic waistband, my true synthetic skin. Please. All the same, I want a crowd to like me. I'll do anything, grow a second head, defame whoever's nemesis, put on cabaret in which I pull out my kidneys. It's pathetic. A stranger's face twists at the sight of me, and I run after them with a questionnaire, shouting, what if I had completely different eyes? The stars above have no friends, flatter nothing, and they're doing okay. The rain falls, unembarrassed, not worrying whether it's beautiful, not hoping to become alive. I could learn a lot from rain, though I probably won't. If this poem's annoyed you, I promise that it's truly sorry. Okay, so here's my watermelon poem, named after the Herbie Hancock song, Watermelon Man. Excuse me while I walk into the nearest wall. Don't worry, but I'll probably fall off the pier. I need crash mats around me always, flung about as I am by questions, ditties, smells. My head is a meteorite that falls horizontally. My legs a tall calamity on the loose, chaotic as escaped giraffes. I stumble into a market stall and demolish its parsnip museum, create an everywhere of celery. Tramping beside a row of houses that are different shades, each bar of colour slams forward and dizzies me, so for a second I see nothing else. Lilac, magenta, teal. It's like being attacked by my first xylophone. A musical disaster, but rather fun. Yes, keep doing it, world. Rearrange me. Keep tripping me up as I try for normal. Attempt to lug this heart unwieldy as a watermelon, dropped and salvaged each day, but firmly sweet. And the last poem I'm going to read to you is as follows. Okay. I am the mob. Even my clavicles have separate identities and private YouTube channels. My teeth keep making death threats, and fuck knows why my feet are pretending to be coral. My nipples have fallen out with each other. My hairs point accusingly at everything. Haven't had an email from my pancreas in forever, and my liver is trapped in the 16th century, enraged by its imbalance of humours. Worst of all, I don't own my face. It floats unannounced into mirrors, firing lasers like a bitchy spaceship. How the lot of us get anything done, I have no idea. If it wasn't for our collective suspicion about the world outside this body, frankly, we'd be nowhere. Thank you.
And now, final set from Isabelle.
So the first poem I'm going to read this time around is well, you'll get a sense of what it's about, but it's called Your Mother's Daughter, a GIF. You will be nothing, like your mother who hoarded, scabs on her knees, praying daily. For a boy, she gave everything, once was found hanging, wind chimes drowning out. Your cry desperate. You have a habit of breaking, your mother's heart echoing fault lines. An invaded coast, you lost the more desirable you became. Out of reach, leaves fall. In the wrong order as you were taught, you bow, then you break. Your silence destroying your mirror. Your mother teaching daughter how to feel for lumps, how to hold her own stomach in, to stomach what she holds in. She umbilicals to you all, lifelong the sentence, fraying when you trust yourself most. Unlearn what you were taught, a fable gleaned from crumpled receipts. Tell your daughter you are inevitable, an inescapable story, but you will be nothing like your mother, who hoarded scabs on her knees, praying daily for a boy. She gave everything once, was found hanging wind chimes, drowning out your cry, desperate. You have a habit of breaking your mother's heart, echoing fault lines, an invaded coast. You lost the more desirable you, became out of reach. Leaves fall in the wrong order. As you were taught, you bow, then you break your silence. Destroying your mirror, your mother, teaching daughter how to feel for lumps, how to hold her own. stomach into stomach. What she holds in, she umbilicals to you. All life long, the sentence fraying. When you trust yourself most, unlearn what you were taught. A fable gleaned from crumpled receipts. Tell your daughter, you are inevitable and inescapable story, but so the next poem is very much tapping into the idea of free will and how choices can affect the rest of our lives. So there's a multiple choice option throughout the, there are multiple choice options throughout the poem, so I'm going to read it both ways. It's called I'm Here / Gone, so I'm going to read it as though I'm here. We were a miracle, like an iceberg breaking off, separating a predator from its prey. Like 2 feet squeezed in a single sock, our flesh cleaving together. This morning I saw 2 squirrels dancing over a wafer of bread, and I thought about that joke you made, the one about the spider who worshipped her mate after he fathered her child. Or was it the vision you buried in me? The one about the cat who let the mouse eat all his food so she'd be too happy to run away. I forget whose hopes we were loyal to. The first time you said my name, I imagined resting on your beard, falling into your lap and watering my desires to make them bloom. Your fingers tugging on my strands, I was woven by your touch. The eggshells to our omelets saying, look at what we made. If I stay, it's because I once saw my mother make paella from 3 days' worth of leftovers. It's because I found a diamond in the ash of the veil I burned. It's being lost and lonely in your absence, my breath held until you return. This is I'm Gone. We were a curse, like an iceberg breaking off, separating a predator from its prey, like 2 feet squeezed in a single sock, our flesh cleaving together. This morning I saw 2 squirrels fighting over a wafer of bread, and I thought about that threat you made, the one about the spider who devoured her mate after he fathered her child. Or was it the nightmare you buried in me, the one about the cat who let the mouse eat all his food so she'd be too heavy to run away? I forget whose fears we were chained to. The first time you said my name, I imagined choking on your beard, falling into your accusations and starving my desires to make them tame. Your fingers tugging on my strands, I was riven by your touch. The eggshells to our omelets saying, look at what we broke. If I leave, it's because I once saw my mother make paella from 3 days' worth of leftovers. It's because I found a compass in the ash of the map I burned. It's being lost and lonely in your presence, my breath held until you leave.
All for being an interested and attentive audience. That's always brilliant. Please do buy the books. I've found, having immersed myself in them for the last month, these are poems that really repay repeated readings. Go to the bookstore, buy the book, and get Isabelle and John to sign it for you. You won't regret it. So, final round of applause.
I'm going to ask people to clap again. Just before we close, we have got a question from our online audience, and it's for John. John, how has teaching influenced you as a poet, for good or for bad?
Hugely. I was thinking, Isabel, before today, I am really re-energized by teaching people, because it makes me start again, begin again. And I like to change my syllabuses every year so that I don't repeat classes. So I'm always, every summer, I always cast my net wide. I always want to teach on lots of poets that I've never taught on before, so I can discover, new voices, different ways of structuring poems, different techniques and devices. And that has really helped my own writing practice. I think it keeps churning, stirring up the cauldron in my brain, putting new things into the pot. So I would say that teaching really aids my own creativity. And hey, I get to hang out with lots of people that are into poetry, which is great. I get to have conversations. I taught on Isabelle's poetry earlier on this year, and I got to have a chat with like 15 people who'd all read Isabelle's poetry. And yeah, in the poetry world, like that is gold to have like, yeah, lots of conversations about poetry. So yeah, quite selfish in a way.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf of our online audience as well. And just to say, that closes the event for this afternoon, but it's not the end of the festival. And there are a few tickets remaining for other events, and we hope to see you there, here or at Waterstones later.